Okay, so third category is canon fodder that you would like to extract from a particular fandom, and I'll go first. I've only got
I was
one.
about to say, do we have all night? I see Rick over there, like
I've
Mr.
I've
Burning.
only
Excellent.
yeah, I've only got one, and I'll just throw it out there. But the main thing I'd like to fix is the canon in the Highlander series. I'd really like to get rid of Highlander 2. Not
Yep.
because I mean Highlander 2 is not a terrible, terrible movie
Yes, it
on its
is.
on its own.
Yes, it is. It's awful from
Your
the beginning to the
your opinion, Rick Tatro. It is a terrible Highlander movie. But it's like the first Highlander had all this mystery around it. You know, the character of Connor McLeod, you know, he was immortal, and they never really tell us why he's immortal, how his people got that way, all that kind of stuff. And I like that about it. And then in the second one, they immediately, in the very first part of the movie, they tell us, oh, it's because they're from the planet Zeist. And when he came to Earth, he was exiled to Earth where he had to play the game. You know, there can be only one game. And I'm like, oh, they're aliens. Come on. And then so that's supposed to explain their immortality. And then in that movie, more people from his planet come, and he kills one of them, and he immediately becomes immortal again. You know, even though he was supposed to have won the contest in the first one and all. And they never talked about it again. So any of the movies that came after that and the TV series that came after that, they never mentioned the fact that they're aliens again. You know, they wanted to forget about that.
Didn't he resurrect Ramirez with his earring or some stupid shit like that?
No, he so in the first one, and this is spoiling the first Highlander, but in the first one, he he wins the prize, and the prize is that he is the last one, and he can choose whether he wants to be immortal forever or if he wants to become human and grow old and die. And he decides he wants to grow old and die. He's lived long enough. And then in the second one, these two guys from his planet come and attack him, and when he kills one of them, he gets the quickening, which is where he gets hit by lightning and everything, and he becomes immortal all over again. So the game starts all over, and then he kills the second one, and when he kills the second one, he yells Ramirez, and the quickening travels to Scotland or wherever he was buried and and brings Ramirez back to life in the same spot that he died in, which is now a stage, and they're performing Shakespeare, and he just appears on stage.
That's right.
You know?
It was even stupider than an earring.
Yeah. So yeah, that's how that happened. But yeah, they wanted to forget about it so much that Highlander 3 Highlander 3 actually takes place before Highlander 2, so that they can kind of erase it. And then the TV show, which was about Duncan MacLeod, they never, they went with the more mysterious origin and that kind of stuff, and never talked about that again. So yeah, I'd like to extract that from the Highlander canon, fix it a little bit. What about you, Virginia?
Well, with apologies to Troy over at World War G, I think Beetlejuice would be a fantastic movie without Beetlejuice. Everything else about that movie, I loved it. I love the recently dead couple who's trying to find their, like, how do they now exist in this world where, people are invading their territory. And then you have a creepy dude who likes to hit on kids and just generally be gross. Why are you ruining my movie? Go away and get out. So, yeah, I think just take Beetlejuice out, rename the movie, done, done.
All right.
I
Wow.
can see that. I can see that. I haven't seen Beetlejuice since I was a kid. I'm trying to remember how integral he was to the plot. I take it not very.
I
No,
mean, he doesn't really show up with like in the big finale he's very integral, of course. But kind of sporadically through the rest of the movie. It's mainly about the couple trying to figure out how to kick their, what do they call them? The
Lydia
anyway,
and sorry, Rick, your mic is.
You talking about the slugs or whatever? The giant
It's
slugs?
about the dead couple trying to figure out how to get their living residents out of their house. It's only
Oh,
towards the
okay.
end where they realize, oh, maybe we should call this Beetlejuice person. And then he becomes like way more important. Until then, we only see him sort of off and on. But yeah, so
Most of my memories of Beetlejuice are from the cartoon, which I loved as a kid. I loved that cartoon when I was a kid. But I saw the movie one time. We had a Halloween party, and my mom took us to the video store and said, pick out a couple of scary movies for the Halloween party. And then immediately she was like, no, not that one. No, not that one. No, not that one. And finally settled on Beetlejuice and Psycho, I think, something like that.
Psycho?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we were like
wow.
13. We weren't like 6 or anything. We were like 13, so we handled it okay.
I gotta say, Virginia, Beetlejuice is one of my favorite movies. You're not wrong about the fact that he's an absolute scum, but that's kind of the point. He's the villain of the movie. But you did save me from making what might have been a big mistake, because I bought the Blu-ray for my lighting design class, because the lighting in the movie is very theatrical.
Mm-hmm.
And you did your Wait You Haven't Seen episode just before that class started, and I was planning to show them Beetlejuice. And after listening to your commentary on it, like, maybe I won't.
Why? Because there's
you're
some
absolutely
sexism or
right.
something like that in it.
Yeah,
It was
scumbag.
80s movies. You're not going to find very many of them that don't have stuff like that in them.
But it's the fact that he's trying to marry Lydia, and he's supposed to be 12 in the movie, and creepy as all get out. That never actually occurred to me, but absolutely right about it. But I love everything else about the movie. I love the aesthetic of it, the look of it, the pacing, the directing. Yeah, you probably could either remove or greatly diminish his role in it, and still salvage the story.
I had also thought about putting it under the trippy category because of like when the dead people try to go outside and it's like Monsterland or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Tim Burton definitely doing something when he made that. Just saying.
Yeah.
But I'm glad my commentary was helpful.
It was.
All right. Rick, what about you?
Okay. There is a movie that the world loves that I can't stand, and the main reason I can't stand it is because of this one character. The character, I don't know how to pronounce the last name of this character. It's Ruby Rod, is it? And it's Chris Tucker's character in The Fifth Element.
Oh, yeah.
Because I won't say The Fifth Element is a good movie, but it's not a bad movie. And if Chris Tucker had been in it for just a few scenes, if he'd got killed in the shootout or whatever, probably would have been fine. But he so totally jar-jarred the rest of that film for me that I can't stand it. I tried to rewatch it a couple of years ago to see if I was giving it a bum rap, and I think it's a terrible film, and he's awful. But if they, let him catch a bullet during that shootout and just chalk him up to a cameo, maybe the movie might have been something worth watching.
And I think something's telling me that he wasn't even supposed to be in that movie, or he was supposed to be a different character, because I think they were supposed to originally have somebody else play that part that pulled out. And I want to say it's like Prince or something like that was supposed to play that part.
That sounds familiar. I think Prince was supposed to, which I don't know if that would have been.
And then he pulled out, which, yeah.
I think that would have been a lot better. Prince has a lot more cred, but I just don't understand Chris Tucker, period. So I can't disagree with you. The one thing I remember about The Fifth Element, aside from not liking it, is that Chris Tucker annoyed the hell out of me. And I mean, it's because when it comes to acting, he thinks that screeching his lines is acting, but he also thinks that screeching his lines is comedy. And so it's just like nothing he does to me works. Everything he does annoys me. So I can't sit through anything with him in it. So I
I
mean,
was a teenager in the 90s, and I have love in my heart for Chris Tucker.
And I mean, I love Mila Jovovich. I think she's
Yeah.
wonderful. I have, Bruce Willis has been in some of my favorite movies of all time. So it's, the rest of the cast is fine. And the basic story is it's kind of trite, but it was done fairly well. But I just couldn't stand that character, and he just was there for the whole goddamn movie.
Well, he didn't come into the movie until the third act, though, right?
I don't remember
right.
exactly. A little over half, but it still was way too much. I couldn't enjoy it because he was still there.
Yeah. All right. What about you, Chris?
well, this one's not going to be popular, but maybe more of the cinematic universe. But I would really love to see what the DC universe would look like without Batman. I just have no use for Batman. And I think that every wrong move that every executive has ever made when it comes to all the DC extended universe films can be laid at the feet of Batman. I never had any use, like I said, never had any use for the character. And I don't know why people love him so much, but I'd love to see.
Thank you.
What? Okay. I mean, it's just this angry guy with a lot of gadgets, and it's that sort of that whole grimdark aesthetic for Batman, just permeated the rest of all this decision making when it came to building a DC universe on film, and it doesn't work for the rest of the DC universe. But since everybody was so beholden to Nolan's take on it, and wanting to get rid of sort of like the campy farce that the Tim Burton universe had degenerated into, and the 60s, Batman 66, here we are with a Superman Batman film that you just can't watch. I mean, the two most iconic characters, Dawn of Justice is nearly unwatchable to me. It just the inclusion of Diana in it was the only thing that made it worthwhile. And to have a Superman film with that same grimdark sensibility, again, because Batman. So I just wonder what things would be like if Batman wasn't the biggest hitter in DC, because he's got the most books of any character, bar none. He's got the most movies of any character, bar none. And he's probably the most beloved, even above Superman, I would say. And anyway, I've gone on long enough about that. The other one that I would excise, again, a very popular character that I just can't stand, is Loki from the Marvel movies. And that I'll lay that directly at the feet of Tom Hiddleston, because I just can't stand the way he smirks and mugs at the camera throughout every single performance. It's just like, get over yourself. So, and can I do one more? But this is more of a trope. Can we get rid of dumb TV sitcom husbands that only
Please
exist
and thank you
by the good graces of their wives that are too smart and hot for them to begin with?
Yeah.
I mean, that's been going on since radio. I listen to a lot of old time radio because I'm a nerd, but like William Bendix in The Life of Riley, whenever that comes on, I want to drive my car into a bridge abutment because he's just such a moron. And that formula has been taken forward into every sort of sitcom since. And I mean, right up until like Everybody Loves Raymond. Ray Romano's character on that is supposed to be a sports writer. He's a writer that can't put two freaking sentences together, who has never read a book and doesn't know how to function in the world. How can you be someone that's a writer and not be literate? How can you be a moron? Anyway, King of Queens does it. It's just something that I want, like Gangsters. I just want to see that go away.
Well, since you brought that up, I'd also like to extend that into saying, please stop making TV shows where the dad is the dumbest person alive, and
it all fits hand in glove with that.
Yeah, because all these shows, the kids are just getting one over on the dad, and usually the kids are teaming up with the mom to get one over on the dad, and all the dad is doing is watching sports and playing golf, and he doesn't know anything about what his kids are doing, and what's going on in their lives. And like there was an episode of Everybody Loves Raymond where he's got twins and he takes the wrong one to the doctor. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
If those are your kids, you know the difference between your own kids.
Yeah.
But all right. Does anybody else have any that they want to throw out there before we wrap things up?
I would still be watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. if Skye wasn't on it.
See, I haven't watched it so long I don't remember who Skye was.
She's the girl hacker at the beginning.
Okay.
Who, you know, when the show premiered, I was all for it. My wife and I watched it together, and the actor who plays Skye is certainly attractive. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. But then the character became so annoying, and kind of like you with Batman, Chris. It was like, okay, now we're back to Skye's story, and it makes no sense, and we're not going to show any real superheroes. But then they after the second Captain America movie,
they tied it in.
They tied it in, and it became interesting. Yeah. I was like, oh, this is cool. But then once that storyline petered out, they went back to Skye's story, and I didn't care, and that's kind of why I stopped watching. I
got as far as I think maybe the third season or whatever when they all started to become Inhumans.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I petered out with that because my one of my favorite characters got turned to stone and then blew away almost like a Thanos snap. Mm-hmm. And then another one got killed, and then they sent away the two Adrian Palicki, who's now on the Orville, mm-hmm. and her boyfriend were very compelling characters, and they went away. I think because they were going to do their own series, but it never materialized.
It didn't happen.
Yeah.
So then all of a sudden we were just back with Skye or Daisy at that point. And it was just like, I'm watching this. Why? Just to watch. It's one of those shows I think we talked about it one of the last times I was on. You just see it piling up on your DVR and you reach that critical mass where you say, I have no interest in getting through this backlog, and you're just done.
And the thing is, Ming-Na is so compelling. I loved her character, and all she was a glorified chauffeur.
She was by a ninja chauffeur.
Yeah, and she who was the Green Hornet? Kato. She was Kato, and Coulson was interesting, but he was always just kind of being sad and not wanting to tell Skye this and don't tell Skye that, and the square jawed agent who would get shot and then 10 minutes later he'd be fine. It just and I understand like Ghost Rider is one of my favorite characters, and I hear he comes in later series, but I was so disinterested by that point. I just
there's a guy at my job that keeps telling me, hey, you gotta get caught up on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I'm like 3 seasons behind. I don't know if I'm ever gonna get caught up, but I think the next season is their last season. They're gonna end it before the Disney Plus service starts up and everything, because Disney's canceling everything that's on other stations. So, all right.
The mouse practices a scorched earth policy.